right, we're going to take a look at the contact center, the Connect contact center, or My Connect contact center dial lists. So there's a couple requirements for dial lists. So number one, you have to have a database. So I've got a database here, and I've just created two entries, and one of the things we're going to test is appending data to this database. So right now I've got some consecutive numbers here. I've set up as phone 1, phone 2, phone 3. So basically each customer has at least 3 phone numbers to contact. Now, most cases might be 1 or 2, and I've set up 2 rows. And I've got an auto counter here, which basically has the other, 7 deleted. So I've got the database. Now, in my contact center, I'm going to find this out here. I bring over the contact center. And what I'm going to do here is go into, make this smaller so we can see it. On my contact center here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into database connections, and here's my connection, and it's set up on my server or on the contact center server, and it connects to my SQL connector. Go in through the ODBC AD, which is the 32-bit one, and make sure that you can connect to the database, which is a MySQL database. Now, the other thing with dial lists is you need to have the data. You need to have a schedule, and you also need to have somebody logged in for it to work. So to start, I'm going to take a look here. I basically have a dial list that's going to go into a queue that I belong to, which is technical support 3, and I've basically just going to have it ring my phone before it connects to the agent. If I check down here, this is the key to whether your dial list is working. So if I hit refresh, it says the dial list is finished. And if I needed to kill the dial list, I would just hit terminate here. So now I want to go to schedule. So I go to my dial list schedules, or I just click here. And I want to make sure for my schedule that I actually have an active date, which is today's June 14th, and I've got it today and tomorrow. And it's just for that period. I don't have any active days. So I've got that, got my dial lists. And once I go to my dial list, it's going to have to require to pull some data from the system. So I go to my input, which is my SQL queries. And right now what you see is I've got my connection defined here. My key column, which is the unique identifier, what you know is the primary key that it's going to actually sort by. It doesn't have to be a primary key, but it's something that it sorts by to go through the data. And then I've got some fields that I want, and I'm going to select phone 1, phone 2, and phone 3 from my database, and then I put it actually into my dial number 1, 2, and 3. Now, next thing I can do is I hit test, and it's going to run a query on the database to make sure it's connecting and pulling the data. And you can see that it received 2 records, which we showed you in the database. It queried this, and it's appending the where and the order by, which only limits it to about 50 records, and it orders it by the counter, which would be numerically. Okay, so that's all in place. So that seems to be okay. Now, the last part we want to look at, I'll minimize this, is again, here's those 3 numbers, here's my agent. I'm not logged in. So what I want to see here is that I'm logged in and the queue is ready to go. Now, before I do that, I have to go back to my contact center, because one last piece that I forgot to mention was that after you have your data and you've done your select, so it's there, you have to go to the import tab, and then you have to import that data. Once you import that data, it's going to fetch those tables and bring it back for the dialing. Then you can set up an automatic import to import every interval or cyclic. Not sure. It doesn't really change if that's a certain predefined time. I'll have to look that up, but I'm basically saying every minute take a look. Okay, so that basically means after it's done the first 50 rows, or it's connected the first time, to look for additional records. So hopefully there'll be additional ones, or the 51st record, or if you only start off with 50 records, the appended one. In our situation, we're starting off with 2. So I'm going to click import now. It's going to say it's going to fetch this from the dial list from your external database. Then I go to my general, and I go down here and I hit refresh, and it says dial list is paused. That's good, because that means it's waiting for somebody to actually to log in. If I go to the contact center agent or the diagnostics, you can see that under the diagnostics page here, and I go into dial lists, you'll see that it actually says that dial list Ken Z is actively paused. So what that means is once I bring over my client here and I put it into login, it's going to change this to active and start serving up calls. So here we go. Okay, so I'm now active. You can see that it's active here. And if I actually hit refresh down here, it's going to say it's active. So now what I'm waiting for is a call to be served up. So let's minimize this. So I want to make sure I'm logged into my queues. It's active now. I'm just waiting for the call to be served up. Here's the call. You can see it's calling that number. I'm going to answer it.
Your call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. If you know
Okay, so now that call is active. So I've made my first call. That was the first one in my DID, which is 12. 13 would be the next one. So now let's say that this was a voicemail and I want to hang up and I want to continue calling. I say call back, busy or no answer. So I'll say no answer, end my wrap time, and I can see another call is going to come up. So when I answer this, now it goes to 1815, which is actually, I'll answer this first, is if I look in my database, this is the first record, phone one of the second record. So I'm going to say that there was no answer, call back busy, end my wrap time, and another call pops up. So now it's 1812 again. So that's the first one that I looked at. So I think my setting is try it 5 times. So I've answered the call, and I'm going to close it off and say, listen, it was a successful call. Finish this call. Now keep in mind, if you had other people, they'd be getting those calls too, not just the same person. So I end that wrap, and all of a sudden I get another call. Now it's the first one of the second data set. So if I open this up, there's 1815. So now let's say this was a successful call, and I finish this call. Now really it shouldn't be sending any additional calls to me because there were successful calls. Don't prove me wrong. But anyways, now I'm looking at this. There's really no calls queued up for me. And if I go into my contact center and I take a look at refresh, it still says the dial list is active. Okay. If I look at my contact center diagnostics, it shows that it's still active. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just put myself on, I'll log out. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my phone on paused. So I've logged out, but the dial list is on pause. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in, and I'm actually going to go in and update the database. Okay, so let's say that this is a query at the end of the night that runs, and the agents have logged out for the day. So I'll go back to my database, and I'm going to put in the next consecutive numbers. So it'll be 760-274-1818. Hopefully that's a valid number. I'm just going to leave that. Okay. And it's saved automatically, so I have additional number. So what you'll see is, and this is when testing, there's a setting that says retain dial list for so many days. So this number, 1812 and 1815, are already marked as being successful. So it will not try to attempt this number. So if my third attempt here was 1812 or 1815, it would still not call because it sees it as a successful number. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log back into my queue, and what I should see, hopefully, is 1818. Assuming that's a valid number. I'll put my phone on hold. So now I'm logged in, I'm active, and I'm waiting for the next call. And it may take that cyclic or that 1 minute for the refresh to go and do that manual import to see what's going on. Here's the call being served up to me. And there's the 1818. So this time I'm going to answer it.
Note that your call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes.
I'll say call back on busy because it's not available. That's going to try back again.
Please note that your call may be recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Now I can set this as do not call back, or it's going to mark it in the database and not to call this number back, but I'll just mark this as a successful call and hit NWRAP, and then there should be no other calls served up to me. So I go back to my database. So basically what I've done is I've appended data to this database and it's made that call. So I've had not to make any changes, refresh, re-import, do any of that stuff. So it's all done on a manual basis. And then all it took was for that agent to log in to initiate that call.